right, ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to the Waterstone 2020 Political Review podcast. I'm your host, editor of the Daily Blog, Martyn Bradbury. With me in the studio is libertarian political commentator and stuff columnist Damien Grant. And joining us via phone is our very special guest, former leader of the National Party, Simon Bridges. Kia ora to you, Simon.
Kia ora, kia ora.
2020, it's been the worst of cliches, it's been the best of cliches. The word unprecedented was used an unprecedented amount, and everyone suddenly became an expert on viruses and vaccines. Tonight, we review the political parties and we award Best Politician 2020, Worst Politician 2020, Worst Political Assassination 2020, Worst Political Mutilation 2020, Best Leadership 2020, and Worst Leadership 2020, plus a final word on 2020 from our guests. So let's kick things off with the Labour government. They were returned to power on the back of a political crimson tsunami of righteousness, which only cost us about $100 billion. Damien, Labour
you love this saying,
blinder. They had a blinder of a year. As a libertarian, you're no longer dreaming in colour, right?
As a libertarian, I can't tell the difference. There's no difference between this government, the one before it, the one before that, and the one before that. I mean,
that's not true. We were communists, but we had some competence. Come on.
Well, that is David Seymour's line. Yes, you were competent communists. Now we have incompetent communists. I don't know which is worse, actually.
But Labour did have a blinder of a year. They did have a blinder of a year.
Did they really? I mean, they had a blinder of an election.
Yes.
I agree. I will concede that. I mean, if you perceive
yes,
the purpose of the Labour Party
yes,
is to warm those Treasury benches,
yes,
then they had a blinder.
They had a blinder.
They wasted Winston Peters.
Yes.
They reduced the Greens to irrelevance.
Yes.
They effectively kneecapped the only effective leader of the opposition that had any chance of winning the damn thing.
Any chance of winning.
So yes, they had an election. If you judge the Labour Party by the things that they hold themselves to account for,
yeah,
like
it's pretty
child poverty.
Oh, it's pretty dreadful. It's a pretty empty barrel. It's a pretty empty barrel. Simon, consider the first day of Parliament last election when you tricked Labour into thinking they didn't have the numbers for the Speaker and National utterly owned Labour that day. Compare that fiasco with the confidence they have now. Was the fundamental issue that Labour was seen to care about the people during this pandemic, whereas National was seen to only care about the economy? What happened?
Yeah, I think there's a bit of that, and you know, the fact that we got COVIDed. I mean, look, I'm with Damien. You look at this in terms of outcomes, and you have to say, okay, Labour was fantastic. They won big. Give some credit to Jacinda, or Gracinda probably, because it's Grant and Jacinda
yes.
in reality. They rigged the room and the mood, and they sort of got that right.
Which is a political skill. It is a political skill.
Political skill, you know, I don't know. And so there is all of that. On outcomes and that, and then tone, they got it very, very good.
Yes.
Look, outside of that, though, let's be honest, in terms of their intentions, in terms of what the people who voted for them at the last, not this election we've had this year, but the 2017 election, look, actually, you'd give them a sort of they'd be lucky.
C minus.
Oh, that's generous.
Damien, why did National crash and burn so badly? Peter Goodfellow says it was the tyranny of a socialist media who sank National. Is that Trumpian in its delusion?
I don't know if it's delusional, but I think they need to come up with an explanation.
And the tyranny of the socialist media doesn't really do it, does it?
Well, it's something that they can believe themselves.
Right.
I don't know that
like
the
a
rest
Trump
of
supporter.
us...
Like a Trump supporter.
I don't know that the rest of us buy into it, although, had it not been for COVID-19...
Sure.
This would have been a much tougher
Absolutely.
election,
No
right?
question about it. No question about it.
So, and I think Peter Goodfellow, I do like that joke that Donald Trump complained that Jacinda Ardern handled the COVID-19 competently in order to win re-election. I think there is an element. So Peter Goodfellow could have accurately said that the government's competent response to COVID-19 gave them the election.
Simon, what part of the train wreck National Party campaign where former presidents passed COVID patient info to an MP who leaked it to the media, combined with the worst coup in New Zealand political history, combined with Jerry Brownlee peddling conspiracy theories during live TV interviews, combined with Judith Collins bewilderingly shitting on fat people. Which one of those was the socialist media's fault in covering? Which one?
Next question.
Which one was it? What happened? What the hell happened, Simon?
Hold on.
I mean,
No.
Damien was asking for an expert, saying we need to find an explanation.
Yes.
I think there's explanations plural, right? I mean, there are many things that go wrong. I mean, look, let's be a little bit philosophical. When things go well, they go really well. When they go badly, look, everything goes badly. I give us a 4 out of 10. It should be lower, but some of my colleagues might be listening, right? So I have to be, it has to be a 4. But we had a bad year, and yep, there's some positives on the Labor side. They had, and obviously COVID isn't a positive, but they had.
Well, they didn't implode, did they? Labor didn't implode. That was good.
They had all of the, but on our side, look, we got a heck of a lot wrong. It wasn't one thing. It wasn't 3 things. Look, it was 18 things. Let's be honest.
It's like what caused the downfall of the Roman Empire. It wasn't one thing. There were lots of little
Vandals,
things.
Goths, infidels. Damien, is 2 meaningless ministerial positions with no power a fair price for Green Party subservience, or is it too much?
No, I think if you're going to sell out your soul,
Right.
you want to get a fair price.
Yeah, but those 2 empty, meaningless baubles are nothing.
No, but I think that demonstrates the value that the Greens place on their soul and integrity.
It's like they went to market with our cow and came back with 3 magic beans. And we all said, where's our cow? And they said, we don't have the cow anymore. We've got 3 magic beans.
But I think that just demonstrates what the Greens actually value their integrity at.
Nothing. 0. Less than nothing.
Yes,
They're
correct.
nothing. Simon, when does Chloe take over as leader of the Greens?
Would surprise me quite soon. I will give them one little bouquet since the election, not in the lead up to the election. I think they were actually hopeless. They were lucky in a way if it was based on merit and
So lucky.
skill to get back, right?
So
They
lucky.
did, because they got the brand and so on. But I have, am I being too generous? I've detected some little sense of kind of independence since the election, whether it's the capital gains tax or what are some of the other things. There's been 3 or 4 things where they have had a crack at the government. I've enjoyed watching it. Obviously, I don't agree with them. I think they're barking sort of mad from my perspective, but at least they have got out from their kind of servile positioning prior to the election.
Do you think, Simon, that criticism means anything if they're still perceived as joined to the hip? I mean, this was the problem the Māori Party had with Key. They would sing that, we've got this and we've been able to advance that, but the actual voters went, no, we see you as joined at the hip. This is going to be problematic for the Greens, isn't it, the next 3 years?
You might say I would say this, but I tell you what, look back at the Maori Party,
Yep.
actually, and due respect to those guys, Juro and so on, they got quite a few policy wins. They had some big, a bit like New Zealand First in a way, some big dollars and a few...
Oh, they've got a hell of a lot more than the Greens ever will. A hell of a lot more.
They were just hopeless marketers at it back then, right? They didn't seem to be able to put it together and tell a good story.
Yes.
The Greens actually have kind of got the reverse going on. They actually hopeless. They didn't get much at all. But on the other side of it, because they've got a green, clean kind of kaupapa, they tend to do okay in spite of themselves.
Although there was some theory that there was some soft Labor vote that went to the Greens to bail them out. I don't know if I buy that.
That's
theory.
my line. That's my line.
Yeah, but I mean, but it's interesting. You have a look at David Seymour over the last, particularly last 3 years. He's been quite effective at distancing himself from National, right? Whereas the Greens, I don't think have ever really been that successful at distancing themselves from Labor.
Well, they've got it. I mean, one of their big ones, for example, is what's James Shorey's Minister for Climate Change. Well, who do we associate first and foremost with climate change, even though she actually hasn't done anything, but let's not get into that. Jacinda Ardern, right? So it's tied up in the Labor brand, it seems to me, more than it is the Green brand, even though he's the guy who's sort of there trying to make it their own thing.
But they held their own,
The problem for the Greens, surely the problem for the Greens is going to be that Marama is Homelessness Minister, James is Climate Sure. It's to inoculate Labor from not having to do anything about those things, right? Or go talk to the Green Party MP, go talk to the Greens, and they can't change anything. It's just a clever way of actually shutting down any progressive movements.
But wouldn't that work better if the Greens were on the attack?
It would be. That's why I don't think they should have done a deal. They should have stayed outside and constantly attacked Labour for the next 3 years.
You've convinced me.
Damien, how much?
I think on the very small chance that National had won the election, which we know was in the end an infinitesimal, negligible chance, I think ACT would have stayed out of ministerial posts, right? I just think that's where Seymour was at. And by the way, he's a cannier politician, isn't he, than James Marama?
Oh, let's get into that. Damien, how much more vote will ACT steal off National by 2023? Percentage now.
I think that's actually up to National and not up to David Seymour.
Yes.
So and so far,
yes.
National have done reasonably well by not imploding in the 3 weeks since the election.
Well, that's not too bad. 3 weeks.
That's a high bar that Damien is.
Exactly.
They've got another 35 months to go.
Sure.
So let's see. I mean, look, they were clearly National Party voters disaffected with their old party that drifted to ACT. From what I'm hearing, ACT is doing quite a lot of good work in drilling their MPs, giving them some training, hoping to Christ there is not another Heather Roy or David Garrett time bomb sitting in there.
Oh, they will be. There will be. Oh, God, there is. You know there has to be.
I think that David Garrett baby thing would literally, I've been in Parliament now like 13 years, that would make the top 6.
Right.
That was good.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, I digress.
So I think ACT actually has the potential to chew significantly into national support pace.
Right.
But that presupposes that the National we see in 35 months is the National we have seen for the last 4 months.
Agreed.
And I don't think that's going to happen. I think if National can demonstrate a degree of competence, then they're going to chip a bit of ACT support back. But I don't know. I mean, if David Seymour can drill these guys and keep them together and keep some discipline, then it's a real existential problem for National.
Well, let's get into that. Simon, while Judith remains as leader of National, is David Seymour the de facto leader of the opposition?
No, look, I think what he did, and all credit to him this election, he's one of the standout politicians of the year.
Yes.
He capitalised cleverly on our omnishambles, right? And we've already talked about that, the multiple things that went wrong, all things better. He stood up and he didn't just sort of do nothing. He said the right things. He got himself the right way. He's done well. I think it's going to be harder from him here on in. I'm not just saying that. Actually, I suppose that you sit there and you say, well, since the election, it was always possible that he'd be the guy the media would all go to. I don't think they are. Even in Parliament, sort of wonder, will ACT outshine us as they go? I don't think they will. Look, I think when all said and done, we're substantially bigger. We still have some competence. I'm with Damien. It's in our hands in National. Anything can happen, but in a sense, while I don't say it's never going to get worse, it can always get worse. We are in a position now where we've lost a lot of MPs. There's a seriousness amongst the caucus which says, you know what, we actually need to up our game. We can't have the shenanigans. And if we stay in that vein, ACT is not going to be cutting our lunch, not going to be getting stronger at our expense, I don't think.
But that may not be a bad thing for ACT. I mean, if ACT might end up with 6 MPs in the next Parliament, but if National are back on the Treasury benches, then Seymour's in a really good position to drive his agenda.
So neither of you see the kind of polarisation that we're seeing in America, where it's getting the extremes are getting far further apart from each other. You don't see that polarisation occurring on the New Zealand right over the next 3 years, Damien?
Not in the short term, no.
Simon?
No, because I think in truth, David Seymour, whilst he's played the gun card and done a few things and he's brought in some people for that, he's ultimately an urban liberal. I mean, this guy represents Epsom. What I do think is with New Zealand first gone, there is a gap in the market.
Right.
I do think there is room for whatever you want to call it, but I don't know, a rural conservative, something or rather style party. Watch that space, whether that emerges or whether it can kind of move into that. But we have a narrower spectrum than America, albeit there is a gap in the market at the moment.
But wouldn't the New Conservatives chip at that?
Oh, possibly, but the problem there is I don't see a credible path for them to Parliament.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
But I mean, but so what? I mean, if that 1-3% vote siphons off to the New Conservatives, and then they sit there at like 4.5%, I mean, it's just wasted vote. Who cares? But I think the difference between us and the United States, it's a cultural thing, right? So Judith Collins is the leader of the loyal opposition. And it's quite a different cultural mindset, I think, the way we do politics to the way that the Americans do politics. So although I think that divisiveness can arise, you still have a situation where the Prime Minister stands up to question time, you have the leader of the opposition standing up there challenging her. The leader of the opposition doesn't dispute the right of the Prime Minister to be there, and the Prime Minister doesn't dispute the right of the leader of the opposition to challenge her. That is a very different cultural mindset to the way the Americans run their politics. And I think it will be harder for that sort of American militarization. You see Antifa and
we are just such a small country in comparison. And frankly, that forces a bit of politeness, if you like, because the reality is, if you slag Jimmy off today, you'll be with his parents tomorrow.
Right.
You're just, it's never going to have that sort of same splintering, I don't think, that you see in, the United States.
Let's get into the awards 2020. Damien, Best Politician 2020, and why?
David Seymour, for the reasons that we've outlined.
Yes.
That's
great insight, Damien. That's great.
That's
Simon, best Politician 2020, sir.
Yeah, I would go Grisinda. That is Grant and Jacinda wrapped into one. Close second, Seymour.
My picks for Best Politician 2020, Chloe Swarbrick, because despite coming in third in both those polls, she still fought so bloody hard and she won the electorate. That is worthy of mention. John Tamahiri, while he didn't get back into Parliament, I think that he reset the Māori Party's legacy, and I think that he redeemed himself in resetting that. And the third person I would say is Politician of the Year, Simon Bridges. And here's my reason why. Sure. We saw what Donald Trump did when he lost. And the unbelievable malice and spite that arsehole was prepared to inject into his own system was deplorable. Simon, despite being knifed unbelievably in the worst coup in New Zealand political history, had the grace and had the good compassion to continue doing the job. And actually, I think, Simon, you're the only National Party MP who has come out of this entire year with any mana intact. In fact, enhanced, sir. Enhanced.
Watch this space.
But I'm blushing.
Let's move on. Damien, Worst Politician 2020. Who and why?
Winston Peters.
Oh, what?
Winston Peters for absolutely blowing the opportunity of a lifetime. If Winston Peters had come out there and actually supported the government, if he had come out there and says, I was a coalition partner for Jacinda Ardern, I was there, I was in the tent, I take credit for COVID, he would have had an opportunity to save himself. By attacking and by trying to present himself as an outsider.
He missed it, didn't he?
He missed the opportunity. But it's not just that. It's failing to control the internal corruption and shenanigans that's going into the New Zealand First Foundation. Just crystallised everything the public had thought about him. He destroyed his opportunity.
Simon, Worst Politician 2020.
Yeah, I hate to be so unoriginal, but I wrote these down before I got on the phone. I'm not going to change them. But all of NT's first basic reason is if we say Jacinda is the best for them as a result of the outcome, they're the worst because, none of them got back.
Sure.
And I have one other, Trevor Miller, just because he's my worst politician every year.
I have to say, Billy TK and Jamie Lee Ross, for the way they manipulated COVID fear, the way they knew that those conspiracy theories were bullshit and that they were prepared to actually pull that sort of shit in the middle of a pandemic.
Point of order.
Screw them. Yes.
Point of order.
Yes.
You said
Yes.
the worst politician, not the worst human beings.
Okay, well, okay, no, that's true. Fair, no, okay, that's a fair point. That's a fair point, but I think they can both fall into both categories. Damien, worst political assassination 2020.
I think Todd Muller on himself.
Self-mutilation. Self-mutilation. Simon, worst political assassination 2020?
Oh, look, I'd go with mine. Look, not for me, only because of all the colleagues who should have been back in Parliament, but if I'm allowed to say that.
My worst political assassination, it's a tie between Trump assassinating that Iranian general and,
Hold on, this is New Zealand.
and Judith Collins blowing Ian Lee Galloway's brains all over the AM studio show when she outed him. That was unbelievable. That was just, and she did it just with just boom, and just, oh my God. It looked like The Sopranos. It
To
really
be fair,
did.
it gave me a newspaper column.
Damien, worst political mutilation 2020?
Mutilation, I was going to go with the Judith Collins execution of...
Okay, Ian Lee Galloway. Okay. Simon?
No, I was going Hamish Walker. Fundamentally because it was entirely unforced. It was entirely his own own goal. He had, literally one of, if not the safest seats in New Zealand.
Right.
And within a few short days, he was no longer a member of Parliament. That's not good.
I think the worst political mutilation this year has been Labour pouring $100 billion into the pockets of property speculators and blowing the entire economy to pieces. I think that was extraordinary. I don't think that I've ever seen a Labour Party try and argue for trickle-down theory before. It's
as a property owner, I mean...
you're through the roof. I know. You're very, very bloody happy. But everyone else, screw it.
House prices in Tauranga are doing pretty well, Simon?
Yeah, they are. Look, but I've got to tell you, I never thought that Bomber and I would have common ground on. He makes a very, very good point.
Damien, Beast Leadership 2020.
Well, I mean, it's hard to go past Seymour, isn't it? But I actually think, although Chloe Swarbrick wasn't the leader, I feel that we need to give her credit for not just winning Auckland Central, but coming so close on the cannabis referendum.
Pretty amazing, huh?
And she was doing that almost single-handedly.
Right.
There was nobody
Act
else.
Party just buggered off. It was disgraceful. Disgraceful. Disgraceful.
Yeah. Where was Chloe on euthanasia?
Simon, Best Leadership 2020?
Yeah, well, just to demonstrate this point we've been talking about the lack of sort of massive spectrum and nastiness, I will go Jacinda. On COVID. Look, at the end of the day, whereas other countries and much of Europe have got resurgent cases and so on, we haven't here. Look, there's been many factors for that, but, reasonable leadership played a part. I also choose Jacinda because I'm safe in the knowledge I'm never going to choose her again at the end of one of these years. So doing it just the once, I'll be okay.
I also have to say, Jacinda, I just think her emotional intelligence during that pandemic, the way she was able to calm the country down, and the fact that almost 90% of us complied. Without the need for soldiers on the streets, without the need for welding doors shut, the common good of the democracy, a well-informed citizenship who were prepared to do the common good for everybody, that's a success for New Zealand. I'm very proud of Jacinda.
I mean, the fact that the sheep do what they're told, is that really a credit to the coyote that's rounding them up?
No, this country isn't just about sheep doing what they're told.
Yes, it is.
We are a nation of sheep. Who will actually direct themselves into the pen and then have an argument once they're in there about who should lock the door. That's the New Zealand that I know and love. Damien, worst leadership 2020. Worst leadership.
I'm going to have to go with Billy TK.
Yes, yes.
And I'm going to say it's the worst leadership because it was just so calculated and malign and unethical and wrong. He was lying. He knew he was lying.
How does Jamie Lee Ross sleep at night? How does he sleep at night?
I imagine on his own.
In a large bath of virgin's blood, I would imagine. Simon, worst leadership 2020?
Oh, you guys think about this stuff much more than me. I just go big broad brush. Look, I'm going Winston again, just very simple. He had the prizes, he had all the power and the glory, and by the end of the year he had none of it. Well, that's for me as a retail politician, that's no success right there. And I don't know what he's doing right now, but he certainly isn't, and none of his colleagues are in Parliament, and I think the reality is none of them will be again.
Did you see the interview with people like Tracy Martin and so forth? And the interview says, has Winston been reached out? And they said, no,
nothing.
No,
he's
just
gone.
ghosted them.
He's buggered. He's ghosted them. My worst leadership 2020, Carmela Sepuloni's inability to change the toxic culture inside WINS and the appalling manner in which Oranga Tamariki has been allowed to mutate into a ministry for kidnapping children. Jesus. Simon, if you're anywhere close to that issue, that ministry needs to be shut down. Wrap with the final word, 2020. Damien Grant, your final word for this terrible, terrible year.
It is just, once again, another tragic example of a lack of independent thought and a willingness of the population to just conform at all costs. And it's just another example of how far away we are from the libertarian paradise, which is why we have now resolved in the libertarian paradise we will not achieve this through democracy. We are going to institute the libertarian paradise by force.
I'm glad, that's wonderful to hear. You need to have a hobby. Good for you. Simon, final word on 2020?
Look, I like what Damien said. I'm going to go to some predictions for 2021.
Yes.
Look, I'm predicting some sort of resumation of normality, by which I mean banal, boring government that achieves nothing of substance except more climate change emergency debates. And look, a year in which 2021, the New Zealand National Party that I've been so proud of over the years, possibly, maybe actually gets its act together. I'm going to make that prediction right here, right now.
My final word on 2020, this was the year where solidarity was suddenly remembered. And the right didn't understand that because they're so individualism uber alles, they couldn't understand what people working together for the common good meant. But Jacinda did, and that's why she won a landslide. And until the libertarian paradise understands the good of working together, they're going to be nothing. We will see you next week for our final show to look at the predictions of 2021 with the leader of the ACT Party, David Seymour. Thank you, Simon.
Thanks, Simon.
Thanks so much, gentlemen.
Good man.
All right.